It was 5 o'clock in the morning and the engines were just waking up. Their drivers and firemen were stoking their fires, greasing their axles, and they were looking forward to the workday. Just then they heard a whistle, and Edward puffed up. "Why are you here?" said Percy, as Edward backed up a bit. "I thought you were taking the 9 o'clock from Wellsworth to Maithwaite." "Yes, well, there's been a change of plans," said Edward. "This ought to be good," murmured Gordon and James to each other. "Well, there's no sense beating around the bush on this one," said Edward. "As I'm sure you all have known, a lot of strange things have been happening around here lately." "Like what?" said Henry. "Oh, gee, I don't know," puffed Edward. "Oliver almost getting ripped apart, blasters being stolen left and right, Thomas and Sonny escaping, the car plans being stolen that day, the Lion of Sodor getting stolen from me as my train was ripped from me. This all can't be a coincidence. It has to be connected. It's happened so short and so stuck together. I don't know, but something's going on," said Edward. Percy wheezed silently, knowing he had been the one to release Thomas and Sonny from their captivity that night. "Oh, it's all a load of rubbish," said Gordon. "No, it's not," said Edward. "And besides, you're apparently so useful and whatnot anymore, why can't you just fix it?" "Because this is more serious, and I don't know that I can fix it on my own." "Oh, Boulderdash," said Gordon. "You're always going out of your way to show us how useful you are, even though you're older, whether it's pushing up hills or shunting cars." "I told you I'm not sure of that anymore." "Well, you certainly make it seem as though you're okay, so why don't you go fix the problem yourself?" "I can't fix it on my own anymore," said Edward. "I couldn't stop that runaway train, I don't know what else I can stop, so please, just shut up and listen to me." The engines were all taken aback. They had never seen Edward this angry before. "Look," said Edward, "I'm sorry for yelling, I truly am, but my runaway train the other day, it proved to me that I'm getting older and I can't stop everything. You saw how it got away from me. James, you were there. Look, all these events, from Oliver getting ripped apart to the blasters being stolen, every day something is stolen or some sort of new crazy terrible thing happens. They can't all be coincidences. Just please, I need your help. I can't do this on my own anymore, and just please think about it," said Edward. Now seeing Edward's fear and his desire for help, the engines talked amongst themselves for a few minutes, but finally came to the decision. "All right, Edward," said Gordon. "Although I am not the most particular believer in this, I am willing to help you, and so is everybody else. However, I will admit, we're not going to be enough." "That's true," said Edward. "We do have a lot of ground to cover." Just then they heard a whistle. "Well, I don't know how much help it's going to be," said Duck as he puffed in, "but I'd like to help out too." "Duck," said Edward, "what are you doing here?" "I overheard you from the yard," said Duck, "and yeah, I want to find out what's going on too and get to the bottom of this. My best friend was almost ripped apart." Just then the Fat Controller arrived. "Oh good, you're all awake," he said. "There's been a massive explosion down at Arlesdale. Apparently Diesel stole some blasters and Paxton and Scruffy were trying to stop him. But the car derailed, there was an explosion, and now Diesel's in pieces. Now, Edward, Percy, and Duck, would you please go assist with the cleanup? James, Gordon, and Henry, go to your usual jobs. Alright, I must go now. Diesel must be fixed soon, and Paxton and Scruffy must be put on the rails." After he had driven away, Edward and Duck looked at each other. "Blasters? An explosion? This is the perfect place to look. This is definitely a part of it," said Edward. "Yes, definitely," said Duck. "We'll go down there, and we'll find out what's going on, or at least get some clues from Diesel and Paxton. If Diesel's able to talk, that is." "True. Too true," said Edward. "All right, let's get going," said Duck, as he puffed onto the turntable, and the others began to do the same. Percy, Duck, and Edward soon arrived at the Arlesdale yard, and although the fire had been put out, it was still in ruins. Paxton and Scruffy were still derailed. Diesel's body still lay across the ground. However, Bell and Flynn and Butch had arrived to help clean up the mess as well. And although they were beaten and bruised, the pack were soon put back up and helped to clear rubble and lay rails for Edward, Percy, and Duck. Within a few hours, a makeshift rail bed and some rails had been laid so that Edward, Percy, and Duck could come in, put Scruffy and Paxton back on the rails, and load Diesel's ruins onto a flatbed so he could hopefully be repaired. As Diesel was loaded onto the flatbed, he moaned and groaned slightly. However, this was good, as it was the only noise he had made since the explosion. Paxton and Scruffy were also put back on the rails by the pack and some other cranes, and they were most grateful. "Thank you so much, Edward," said Paxton. "Yes, thanks," said Scruffy. "You're quite welcome," said Edward. "Now, I was wondering if I could ask you a question about Diesel." "Of course," said Paxton. "Okay, good," said Edward. "Well, you see, we're trying to figure some things out, and we'd just like to know what Diesel wanted to do with that Blaster's car, or where he was headed with it." "Oh, I think he wanted to go to the Diesel Works with it, if that helps you any." Yes, actually, it helps us quite a lot, thank you." Duck then whispered to Percy, "We're going to the Diesel Works next." "I'm sure of it." "A lot of weird things have been happening lately," said Paxton. "We'll be sure to keep our eyes open. And if you need anything, just holler." "Oh, thank you," said Edward, as they began to puff away. Meanwhile, on the other side of the island, Henry had stopped at Farquhar pulling a slow goods train, and was listening to two men on the platform argue. "I'm telling you, I saw it with my own eyes," said one. "That's the biggest load of crap I've ever seen," said the other. "You're seriously telling me a Diesel stole the Lion of Sodor? Ha! Preposterous." No, it's real, it's true. I would have told the police, but my wife thought I was crazy and told me I shouldn't." "Well, I'll believe it when I see it," said the other. As they began to walk off the platform, Henry, now intrigued, whistled at the one who said he saw the Lion of Sodor being stolen by a Diesel. "Oi! You said you saw it being stolen by a Diesel, right?" "Well, yes." "That makes a lot of sense, actually," said Henry. "Thank you." You're welcome," said the man, confused. Henry then thought, "Probably going back to the Diesel Works. That's the next place we stop," he said. And he puffed away. Later that day, James pulled into Knapford. Scruffy was sitting on the other platform as Paxton had gone off to do something. "I wonder," thought James. "You're Scruffy, right?" said James. "That's my name," said Scruffy. "Don't wear it out." James remembered the day he was in the yard and Diesel got hit by Oliver's train, and he then saw Diesel and Scruffy arguing. Or maybe talking, he wasn't sure. "Were you talking with Diesel here in Knapford? The day Oliver had his accident with Diesel?" "Yes." "Wait a minute, weren't you the truck that tried to pull Oliver apart?" "Yes, and I'm not proud of it. I learned my lesson." "But that makes no sense, you're just a truck, how could..." Then it clicked. Diesel. Diesel was working with you, wasn't he? "Yes, he was." "And he just disappeared afterwards, no one knew." "Yeah, he did." "And blasters were stolen that day, too." "The only place he would hide stuff like that is the Diesel Works. Diesel was stealing them." "Okay, thought James, almost frantically at this point. Diesel stole the blasters, right? As far as I know, yeah. Okay. Better check the Diesel Works then." "Thanks, Scruffy." You're welcome, I guess. I don't really know what I did." And James puffed away. "I still don't know what I did." Later that day, the engines all had a break, so they all went to Tedmouth to discuss their findings. And after about 10 minutes of discussing, they all settled on the same decision. "We must search the Diesel Works," said Edward. "All of our clues point there, and it only makes the most sense at this point." "That's true, but," said Gordon. "Oh, what now?" said James. "Will you shut up, James?" said Gordon. "Sorry, jeez." I feel as though there isn't enough proof yet. There's got to be something else. We're forgetting the biggest part, Thomas and Sonny's escape. If this plays a role in this, then where does it fit in? "We don't know where half this stuff fits in, Gordon," said Edward. "It's got to fit in somewhere." It was then that Percy's conscience got the better of him. Should I tell them? Should I tell them? Should I not tell them? Should I tell them? All these ideas swirled around his smoke box, till finally he shouted out, "I'm sorry, okay? I dealt and I did it, and he said. Edward, now concerned, backed up and looked at Percy. "Percy, tell me straight, what did you do?" I helped Thomas and Sonny escape." "But you couldn't have done that on your own." No, I made a deal with Diesel 10. You did what? Said Edward. You don't deal with him. You know what he does. What did he ask for you in return? A carton of blasters. I was only trying to help my friend. You idiot, said Edward, now getting madder and madder. The other engines now looked scared. They had never seen Edward this angry before. I'm sorry, said Edward. But Percy, you deliberately dealt with Diesel 10 and gave him what he wanted. And now Thomas is even more of a fugitive, and Diesel 10 probably is one step closer in whatever it is he wanted that for. Look. Well, now we have our proof, and I think now our only option is to search the Diesel Works. Don't you all agree? The engines all kind of looked at their buffers. Yes, they said. All right. Percy, Duck, you come with me to the Diesel Works. Gordon, Henry James, Paxton and Scruffy, keep doing as much searching as you can. We have to get to the bottom of this. This just got a whole lot more serious than I thought. Yes, they all said. It was late that night when Percy, Duck, and Edward made their way to the Diesel Works. It was cold and damp and strangely deserted, except for Diesel, of course, who was still on his flatbed. All right, we must be careful, said Edward. Percy and Duck's crews got out and began talking with some of the mechanics. The one mechanic was oddly uncomfortable, though. Then Duck peered over into the darkness. Look, he said. There, situated in the corner, was all manner of explosives. Fuel, blasters, and oil. Then their crews looked at the floor. Look, papers. These aren't papers, they said. They're receipts of sale. They were selling the stuff they stole to get blasters, and they were also stealing blasters, too. What have we come across? The engines thought. Just then, everything went dark. When the lights came back on, they were off the rails and Diesel 10 was in between them. So, you figured out my plan, eh? Only partially. All that stuff you stole, you were stealing to get blasters and explosives. Yes, that's true, said Diesel 10. Although it wasn't me personally. No. Diesel stole a lot of the blasters. He stole the line of Sodor. The thieves actually stole the car plants from Ulstead Castle. Percy stuttered, trying to get his words out. So you're the reason Thomas has been exiled now. No, Thomas is the reason he's been exiled. Oh, and Percy, I meant to thank you, said Diesel 10. You got me those blasters that night, too. Percy looked at his buffers, ashamed. Ha ha ha! Oh, it's so good to have my old friends back, isn't it? Said Diesel 10. Ugh. Edward rolled his eyes. You should be grateful. I'm about to do you a great deed, said Diesel 10. You see, over the past, some odd years, I've tried everything I could to get rid of you, but it always failed, and I've never understood why. However, now I know it will work. You see, when people are afraid, they will do anything, and so I will make them shake in their boots. And how do you plan on doing that? Oh, it's quite simple. In fact, it's almost already done. I made the thieves steal the car plans so I could then sell them for blasters. I made Diesel try and take the line of Sodor from you on the bridge, but when that failed, he jumped the points, the cars ran away, and he stole it after it had been taken to the museum. You son of a said Diesel 10, clenching his claw at Duck. I would refrain from using any of that language around me. Thank you. Now, where was I? Oh yes, my plans. And you see, the most recent blaster stealing, that was quite a that was quite a masterpiece of a plan, I will say that, said Diesel 10. Oh, it's quite simple. I damaged Toad so that Oliver wouldn't have a brake van. Oliver would crash into Diesel. Diesel would conspire with Scruffy. They would pull Oliver apart, and Diesel would take the blasters from Oliver's train. It just so happened that the cars Diesel took for the plan already had blasters, so there was no need for it. So you ripped apart Oliver for no fricking reason? Said Duck. Once again, I would like to encourage you to shut your mouth, said Diesel, before you're made food for the smelters. Yes, said Duck through clenched teeth. We get it now, said Edward. You've been manipulating events for the past, I don't know how long, so you could get supplies, so you could then blow stuff up. But I still don't understand what you plan to do. Well, you see, Edward, said Diesel 10, today is Friday, and come Monday morning, every station, shed, factory, you name it, on the island of Sodor will be rigged with explosives, and every single one of them will detonate on Monday morning at 8 o'clock. And once they are detonated, I will then threaten the people. Give me control of the railway, or continue to be exploded. And if they give me control, then I will then go on a purge, a great purge, a purge that will rid the island of steam engines once and for all, and diesels will reign supreme. You're a monster, said Percy. I never should have trusted you. Well, guess what? You already have. Now, if you'll excuse me, I have some wires to set up, some wires to cross, and a detonator to set up. Goodbye. And Diesel 10 oiled away. Edward, Percy, and Duck sat derailed in the diesel works all weekend. Just as Diesel 10 promised, come Monday morning, the sheds and all the buildings were rigged with explosives, particularly Farquhar's shed, as that was where the detonation was meant to go off. Diesel 10 and his cronies soon arrived. The detonator, which was made out of an old gas engine, lay on the other side of the points. Now to just push the button and the whole thing goes up in flames. Our day has come, boys, said Diesel 10. Just then, Toby the tram engine, who was in the yard, puffed up in front of Diesel, blocking him. Step aside, tram, said Diesel 10. Your time has come. No, said Toby. This is my home, and I will defend it. Very well, then. Sydney, Dennis, Norman, back up. And they backed up just out of sight. I'm going to ask you again, tram. Move, or you'll be firewood. No, said Toby. Diesel 10 lunged at Toby, but then there was a clink, and Diesel 10 couldn't move. What's holding me back? He yelled. How's it going, Diesel? Said Thomas and Sonny from behind.